A.2.20. Why are most anarchists atheists? It is a fact that most anarchists are atheists. They reject the idea of God and oppose all forms of religion, particularly organized religion. Today, in secularized Western European countries, religion has lost its once dominant place in society. This often makes the militant atheism of anarchism seem strange. However, once the negative role of religion is understood, the importance of libertarian atheism becomes obvious. It is because of the role of religion and its institutions that anarchists have spent some time refuting the idea of religion as well as propagandizing against it. So why do so many anarchists embrace atheism? The simplest answer is that most anarchists are atheists because it is a logical extension of anarchist ideas. If anarchism is the rejection of illegitimate authorities, then it follows that it is the rejection of the so-called ultimate authority, God. Anarchism is grounded in reason, logic, and scientific thinking, not religious thinking. Anarchists tend to be skeptics and not believers. Most anarchists consider the church to be steeped in hypocrisy and the Bible a work of fiction riddled with contradictions, absurdities, and horrors. It is notorious in its debasement of women, and its sexism is infamous. Yet men are treated little better. Nowhere in the Bible is there an acknowledgement that human beings have inherent rights to life, liberty, happiness, dignity, fairness, or self-government. In the Bible, humans are sinners, worms, and slaves, figuratively and literally, as it condones slavery. God has all the rights, humanity is nothing. This is unsurprising given the nature of religion. Bakunin put it best, open quote, "The idea of God implies the abdication of human reason and justice. It is the most decisive negation of human liberty and necessarily ends in the enslavement of mankind, both in theory and in practice. Unless, then, we desire the enslavement and degradation of mankind, we may not, must not, make the slightest concession either to the God of theology or to the God of metaphysics. He who this mystical alphabet begins with A will inevitably end with Z. He who desires to worship God must harbor no childish illusions about the matter, but bravely renounce his liberty and humanity. If God is, man is a slave. Now man can and must be free. Then God does not exist." End quote. For most anarchists, then, atheism is required due to the nature of religion. Open quote, "To proclaim as divine all that is grand, just, noble, and beautiful in humanity," Bakunin argued, "is to tacitly admit that humanity of itself would have been unable to produce it. That is, that, abandoned to itself, its own nature is miserable, iniquitous, base, and ugly. Thus we come back to the essence of all religion. In other words, to the disparagement of humanity for the greater glory of divinity. As such, to do justice to our humanity and the potential it has, anarchists argue that we must do without the harmful myth of God and all it entails, and so, on behalf of human liberty, dignity, and prosperity, we believe it our duty to recover from heaven the goods which it has stolen and return them to earth." End quote. As well as the theoretical degrading of humanity and its liberty, religion has other, more practical problems with it from an anarchist point of view. Firstly, religions have been a source of inequality and oppression. Christianity, like Islam, for example, has always been a force for repression whenever it holds any political or social sway. Believing you have a direct line to God is a sure way of creating an authoritarian society. The church has been a force of social repression, genocide, and the justification for every tyrant for nearly 2 millennia. When given the chance, it has ruled as cruelly as any monarch or dictator. This is unsurprising, open quote. God being everything, the real world and man are nothing. God being truth, justice, goodness, beauty, power, and life, man is falsehood, iniquity, evil, ugliness, impotence, and death. God being master, man is the slave. Incapable of finding justice, truth, and eternal life by his own effort, he can attain them only through a divine revelation. But whoever says revelation says revealers, messiahs, prophets, priests, and legislators inspired by God himself, and these as the holy instructors of humanity chosen by God himself to direct it in the path of salvation necessarily exercise absolute power. All men owe them passive and unlimited obedience, for against the divine reason there is no human reason, and against the justice of God no terrestrial justice holds." End quote. Christianity has only turned tolerant and peace-loving when it is powerless, and even then it has continued its role as apologist for the powerful. This is the second reason why anarchists oppose the church, for when not being the source of oppression, the church has justified it and ensured its continuation. It has kept the working class in bondage for generations by sanctioning the rule of earthly authorities and teaching working class people that it is wrong to fight against those same authorities. Earthly rulers received their legitimization from the heavenly Lord, whether political, claiming that rulers are in power due to God's will, or economic, the rich having been rewarded by God. The Bible praises obedience, raising it to a great virtue. More recent innovations like the Protestant work ethic also contribute to the subjugation of working people. That religion is used to further the interests of the powerful can quickly be seen from most of history. It conditions the oppressed to humbly accept their place in life by urging the oppressed to be meek and await their reward in heaven. As Emma Goldman argued, Christianity, like religion in general, open quote, contains nothing dangerous to the regime of authority and wealth. It stands for self-denial and self-abnegation, for penance and regret, and is absolutely inert in the face of every indignity, every outrage imposed upon mankind. End quote. Thirdly, religion has always been a conservative force in society. This is unsurprising as it bases itself not on investigation and analysis of the real world, but rather in repeating the truths handed down from above and contained in a few holy books. Theism is then, open quote, the theory of speculation, while atheism is the science of demonstration. The one hangs in the metaphysical clouds of the beyond, while the other has its roots firmly in the soil. It is the earth, not heaven, which man must rescue if he is truly to be saved. Atheism then expresses the expansion and growth of the human mind, while theism is static and fixed. It is the absolutism of theism, its pernicious influence upon humanity, its paralyzing effect upon thought and action, which atheism is fighting with all its power. End quote. As the Bible says, "By their fruits shall ye know them." We anarchists agree, but unlike the church, we apply this truth to religion as well. That is why we are, in the main, atheists. We recognize the destructive role played by the church and the harmful effects of organized monotheism, particularly Christianity, on people. As Goldman summarizes, religion, open quote, is the conspiracy of ignorance against reason, of darkness against light, of submission and slavery against independence and freedom, of the denial of strength and beauty against the affirmation of the joy and glory of life. End quote. So, given the fruits of the church, anarchists argue that it is time to uproot it and plant new trees, the trees of reason and liberty. That said, anarchists do not deny that religions contain important ethical ideas or truths. Moreover, religion can be the base for strong and loving communities and groups. They can offer a sanctuary from the alienation and oppression of everyday life and offer a guide to action in a world where everything is for sale. Many aspects of, say, Jesus's or Buddha's life and teachings are inspiring and worth following. If this were not the case, if religions were simply a tool of the powerful, they would have long ago been rejected. Rather, they have a dual nature in that contain both ideas necessary to live a good life, as well as apologetics for power. If they did not, the oppressed would not believe, and the powerful would suppress them as dangerous heresies. And indeed, repression has been the fate of any group that has preached a radical message. In the Middle Ages, numerous revolutionary Christian movements and sects were crushed by the earthly powers that be with the firm support of the mainstream church. During the Spanish Civil War, the Catholic Church supported Franco's fascists, denouncing the killing of pro-Franco priests by supporters of the Republic, while remaining silent about Franco's murder of Basque priests who had supported the democratically elected government. Pope John Paul II is seeking to turn the dead pro-Franco priests into saints while the pro-Republican priests remain unmentioned. The Archbishop of El Salvador, Oscar Arnulfo Romero, started out as a conservative, but after seeing the way in which the political and economic powers were exploiting the people, became their outspoken champion. He was assassinated by right-wing paramilitaries in 1980 because of this, a fate which has befallen many other supporters of liberation theology, a radical interpretation of the Gospels which tries to reconcile socialist ideas and Christian social thinking. Nor does the anarchist case against religion imply that religious people do not take part in social struggles to improve society. Far from it. Religious people, including members of the church hierarchy, played a key role in the U.S. civil rights movement of the 1960s. The religious belief within Zapata's army of peasants during the Mexican Revolution did not stop anarchists taking part in it. Indeed, it had already been heavily influenced by the ideas of anarchist militant Ricardo Flores Magón. It is the dual nature of religion which explains why many popular movements and revolts, particularly by peasants, have used the rhetoric of religion, seeking to keep the good aspects of their faith while fighting the earthly injustice its official representatives sanctify. For anarchists, it is the willingness to fight against injustice which counts, not whether someone believes in God or not. We just think that the social role of religion is to dampen down revolt, not encourage it. The tiny number of radical priests compared to those in the mainstream or on the right suggests the validity of our analysis. It should be stressed that anarchists, while overwhelmingly hostile to the idea of the church and an established religion, do not object to people practicing religious belief on their own or in groups, so long as that practice doesn't impinge on the liberties of others. For example, a cult that required human sacrifice or slavery would be antithetical to anarchist ideas and would be opposed. But peaceful systems of belief could exist in harmony within an anarchist society. The anarchist view is that religion is a personal matter above all else. If people want to believe in something, that's their business and nobody else's, as long as they do not impose those ideas on others. All we can do is discuss their ideas and try and convince them of their errors. To end, it should be noted that we are not suggesting that atheism is somehow mandatory for an anarchist. Far from it. As we discuss in section A.2.7, there are anarchists who do believe in God or some form of religion. For example, Tolstoy combined libertarian ideas with a devout Christian belief. His ideas, along with Proudhon's, influences the Catholic Worker Organization founded by anarchist Dorothy Day and Peter Maurin in 1933 and still active today. The anarchist activist Starhawk, active in the current anti-globalization movement, has no problems also being a leading pagan. However, for most anarchists, their ideas lead them logically to atheism for, as Emma Goldman put it, open quote, in its negation of gods is, at the same time, the strongest affirmation of man, and through man, the eternal ye to life, purpose, and beauty. End quote.